So again, keep in mind you don't necessarily have to follow these numbering schemes. Essentially, what you're going to do is we're going to label the vertices if you need it. We're going to use numbers like 1, 2, 3 without any parentheses. You can actually see them. And if they're hidden, I'm going to put it within simple parentheses or simple brackets and then number them in the sequence like closer to further away from it. So you don't have to do this, but just this makes it easier. And then I want to emphasize this again that this is not a standard notation. And if you do happen to use it later on, kind of like sneakily erase it off so that nobody actually used it. But for this course, we're not, this is actually good. We know that we kind of have an idea about how you actually figure this out. So we leave it as is. So with that, these are the examples. So the two optional example here. So we're going to create this, and then there's space for creating an isometric view. So let's see how this actually works. So it looks like it's going to be very, very tight, right? My camera over here. So it looks like I don't really have enough space. So let's see, what do you reckon? So let's see if this actually works out. So this is about 40 millimeter. Okay, so let's see, I have 40 millimeters. Okay, so I do have 40 millimeters. So there's a gap about 20 millimeters here. So if I do 20, looks like I should just about be able to fit the object in the shape. So we're actually good to go, right? So let's do that. So the first thing we're going to do is create our miter line, which is the 45-degree line, the fancy name for it. So we're going to create, starting from this point, so create the 45-degree line. Okay, make sure this is actually a faint or a light line. So, and we're going to basically use this to transfer kind of the right side view features onto the top view. So essentially we're kind of like turning the corner, then locating the parts. So we don't, again, I'm going to show you without numbering the vertices. Maybe we might number few, get stuck somewhere. We're going to try to identify how these features actually look. So this again is the front view, this is the right view, and the one that goes on the top is going to be the top view. So since we're going to be creating the top view looking at the object from here, so I'm going to start looking at the features going from top to bottom in my object. So the keep going forward. So I notice if I use my ruler, or I can actually use grid lines, and then I notice that these two are at the same height. That basically means this and this are probably one feature together. So it looks like it's a flat line here and then two flat lines here. So that basically means I'm going to create some kind of a planar object over here. So let's go a little bit further to identify the parts. So this is actually aligned with the grid line. Just a rendering error. So it looks like this hidden line and these two are at the same height. That probably forms some feature, and this slanted line doesn't really show up on the front view because it's slanted, and then if you turn it over, probably just hidden behind this face. So that's that. So let's go a little bit further down, and then so we have a line here and a line here. So that basically means that you're seeing an object as lines in two views. So if I turn it over, this is probably a planar surface. We go a little bit further down, and then there is a line here and a line here. So if I look at it, so I can basically say that this line and this line together kind of are forming kind of like a angled surface, which might show up a slightly weird shape in the other view. Then we go a little bit further, and this is the view that we get. So this is the object. So since we have identified most of the features, we can try to see if we can actually create the object without using the guideline points or numbered points. So let's just see if we can do it quickly. I'm going to pull these lines up. I'm going to infinity on here, here. Then I'm going to need all these four lines. Here, here. Goes up to here. And we can keep going, creating the next line as well. This is going to go here, here, that is close. All right, so let's go horizontally. So we have to match here to so one more, one more, and let's see this guy here. So we have a line here and a line here. So we're going to make this guy dark. And similarly, the back is going to be darkened as well. So we basically taken care of this. So let's go to the next feature down, which is going to be this one. So for that, I probably need to pull this edge up. So one try could be to just align your ruler with the grid lines and then move it slowly here. That allows you to basically make it parallel. So if you look at it, so this probably is getting aligned here. So I'm going to make this line dark. We have that. And if you look down, so there's going to be this and this. So that gets darkened over here. And this angled face connecting these two lines, and then there's probably going to be a connection behind. So this gets connected. So in like the way it'll look is that this will look like a single straight line, right? So we've taken care of parts up to here. So let's try to create this region over here. So for that, we're going to pull and we'll pull up line, making sure we're keeping it vertical. And we already have the back line. We need to pull up this line from here. Let's make sure puller is actually vertical. Line, move it slowly. I'm gonna maybe make it dark right away. The grid line I'm actually using. Okay, so we have that. Let's see. So let's create the back line. So we're basically creating this line, right? So that means I'm going to create, essentially we're creating this line kind of like rotated like so, and then there's going to be another line right behind it. So all the time I want to make sure I only extend the line up to here, and then we make the dark, or the back side dark as well. We have this. So let's keep moving. So let's look at the other feature. We go further down. So let's see. We have the next feature down is going to be this guy over here. So that you notice that there isn't really any feature over corresponding to here. So why is that? So the reason is there is probably an error in the drawing. So we can actually go ahead and create this hidden line. And we pick this guy over here. And we go it all the way. So we already have this region darkened. And there's going to be a connection from here to here, so we'll make that region dark. And I'll make this region dark. Then finally we go to the bottommost, or rather we go to this line over here. Up. So this is very, very close to this point, so we need to be careful we don't overlap. And we go horizontally. So this ends up over here. So here is where we need to be a little bit careful. Oops. So this point, let's see, where does this correspond to? So this corresponds to here. So this point, put vertically up. End point here. And so what is actually happening is, if you look at this drawing, I'm having this point and this point getting connected. So it might have been easier if you had actually labeled them. Let's basically maybe just do it for this picture alone. Since I haven't numbered any of this, I'm just going to call this point A. And then I know where is A here. It's going to be point A here. Correspondingly, this. Right, so this is the point A. So let's figure out this point over here. So this is going to be here. Here. So we have to be a little bit careful drawing this. So we have to connect this point with this point. So we have to connect the points A and B together. Kind of creates this shape here. So let's go further. We'll call this point C. Again, I could have used 1, 2, 3, but just to show you can actually letters as well. Further up. So where is C? So C is actually going to be here. This point over here. So we notice that B and C need to be connected here, here. That means this two are going to have this, and on the back side, going to be kind of like hidden behind this line. We're going to connect the top point to the bottom point, which is something that's behind C over here. So we're going to join these two. And we can go and let's keep going. And so behind, so we haven't quite created this part as yet. So we have to have something behind which would kind of get aligned with the back line over here. That can then we join these two. So this is actually our final shape. So where we didn't quite number all of these, so I did call them A, B, C. So you could also just change A to 1, B to 2. So it doesn't really matter as long as you know which points are being numbered. So if it looks reasonably good, you can just like quickly check if some lines are a little bit darker, heat a little bit and then erase them. That only my visible lines are dark enough. Realize I'm actually missing a line. This is the missing top view. So once we have that, we can actually go ahead and then try to create the isometric view here. So this looks like a little bit congested as well, so we might just run out of space. Fortunately, I've actually provided you with kind of the bounding box to just make life a little bit easier, and we'll just make sure we haven't made any mistakes here. So four units matching here, matching the height. So my object is going to actually fit inside the isometric box that I have. So let's actually go ahead and then see if we can actually make these parts. Again, we are mainly concerned about creating the objects in so we're not actually going to show the hidden views. So we're going to focus on the top, the right, and the front plane. So as long as the lines and points are actually aligned, it's very easy to actually make them. So if you look at the line, this guy here and this one, so that basically means that these are actually exactly on the top plane. So we can actually create those right in a straightforward manner. So I'm going to basically make one dark. I'm going to leave 10 millimeters gap in the middle. That's corresponding to this gap over here. And we go ahead and make this guy dark. So, and none of the other features are actually on the top plane, so it might be a little bit tricky. So we go further and let's see what is actually located on the front plane. So this is exactly on the front plane, so we can actually do that part. So we just need to be a little bit careful that B is not exactly on the, this is on the right plane, so B is not exactly on the front plane. We need to transfer the distance. So once again, there are a couple of ways in which you can transfer the distance. So one would be to actually measure it with the ruler. The other one would be if you actually had a compass with you, so you can actually use that to transfer the distance. I'm going to kind of use the way I can potentially do it, kind of use compass from here to here, and then just transfer this distance here directly. And the other thing to note is you want to make sure you only travel along the X, Y, or Z coordinate, and then you don't kind of do a diagonal transition. So let's do this. So the back point here is located exactly in this vertex over here. That's good. The bottom point C is also located on the plane, so we mark that. The point B is, where is it? So if you look at this, from this view, I know it's exactly located on the front plane. So it's going to be on this plane. But from this view, I know it's actually offset a little bit into the front plane. So what I can do is again use my compass over here. So I'm actually 1 centimeter. So here, here, and so this is going to be my point B over here. We just put a little small b, really faintly because we don't know how much space we'd actually need. But really faintly here, over here. So then I'm going to connect C to B. So, and we go all the way here. And we go 10 millimeters above this point. Then we connect B. So again, we're trying to get the low hanging fruit first. And then this line from here is exactly on the front plane. So we can actually draw that guy here. That's good. So far, so good. And then if I look at this view, I'm going to have this line, and then these lines are connected. So basically mean that these two are actually connected to each other. Make this A here. And this, I'm going to basically use a faint line because I might need to interfere or stop it somewhere. So I'm just going to use a faint line over here, join it, so I can use it at a later point. So our object is starting to take shape here. So let's go start looking at more challenging parts. The flat ones are always a little bit easier. So we can look at this part. Let's see. So this part, where is it located? So this, I can once again use the compass, or I can use essentially the ruler to get the dimension. To get to this point, so I need to go 10 millimeters from the back. 10 millimeters, I need to go millimeters. I'm going to go 15 millimeters up. here. I'm going to go 15 millimeters up. We get to this point, and how far do we need to go in? So this is going to be a little bit more challenging. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to, as a guide, I'm just going to use the grid lines, and then I'm going to draw a faint line. So, and there are a couple of ways you can actually do this. So one way to do it is if you look at the drawing, so you notice that these two get, this line and this line get connected. So what I mean, then I kind of interpret that this is the same as this line. So wherever I intersect is going to be the point from where line here starts. The other way to do it is to actually measure the distance from right side view, or I can do it from the top view. So let's do it from the right side view. So, and I notice that this is not exactly equal to this distance here. So either way, I would actually end up getting the same point. So let's make guys dark. So I'm going to join this here. Good. And I'm going to see if I need way this line. So this line probably extends all the way to the back. And I don't know how far, if it might get hindered by some other object. So I'm going to leave this hidden, or rather the faint line as is. And then I look at the back. Might need to basically join this line vertically down. That again with a faint line. So this is kind of giving me an outline of how the back side of the object is. So all right, so we've done this and then most of this face. So let's try to do this face, which again is a little bit complicated. So the easier way to do it is to identify the location here. Where is this location? So I have to look at two views. So I'm basically going to go 10, 20, then 25 millimeters. Again, I'm going to use the ruler over here. So this is 25 millimeters going vertically up. And then I can't figure out how far it actually goes to the left. So for that, I'm going to use the other view. This 15 millimeters. So how do I do that? Again, so I'm going to go, essentially I'm going to go 25 millimeters up. That'll give me this point, and then 15 millimeters to the, basically kind of, this is the left side of the object. So again, so this is 25 millimeters up, then 25 millimeters. Let's actually measure this out. $5 over here, and then we're going to go 15 millimeter. Excuse me. So we're going to go 15 millimeters in, basically doing this towards the left of the object, but 15 millimeters. Again, I need to make sure maybe I draw another helper grid line meters on it. Up over here. It's going to basically be essentially here. Okay, so that basically means I can maybe use a faint line for now to join these 2 points. And what I do then is I can kind of like extend this. And I know the parallel lines are going to be maintained parallel in the isometric. So since this is going to be parallel, so this actually is going to represent the front and the back line. So I'm going to basically take this and kind of like use it from this point here. So if you don't actually trust me, you can actually double check that the numbers are correct, that we actually end up at this point. So this point is going to be A, right? Let's see how we get to A. A here to here is 25 and 50, which would basically get to this point. And from here, you can figure out here to mark this out. So it seems like we're getting two different locations of A. So obviously one of these needs to be wrong. So let's kind of like revisit the assumption that we made. So we basically thought that this line AB is going to be parallel to the back line. If you look at it, looks like it's parallel in the front view, but if I go to the right side view, so it's actually at a weird angle. So actually the lines are kind of at a different angle. That means that these two lines aren't going to be parallel. So the first location I got is actually incorrect. But since second point was actually a direct measurement, that is actually the correct point. So I'm going to use this as A and then not this point. Then we join these two and then join these two. And our object is starting to take shape more. And let's get to this point. 15 millimeters from here. 15 millimeters. Here. And let's do. And let's join. And this line is actually parallel. So then I'm right line. I can actually again double check to make sure my numbers are correct. So let's do here to here. Let's make it out. And here to here we measure and then we get to the same point. So I know that, and then again if I look at multiple views, lines are indeed parallel. So I'm actually marking this. Okay, so we're getting there. So we look at it further, and then in multiple views, these two lines, rather this line and this line, seems to be parallel. So if you know that, or rather, if the line is actually parallel in multiple views, then the line is indeed parallel. If it's parallel only in one view, and it's not parallel in the other view, then the lines aren't actually parallel. So anyway, so we go from here, and we draw our so-called parallel line, drop it down, and then we look at this. And we can actually draw this to be a horizontal line, which would be parallel like so. Darken these, and I can actually darken the line joining this point. Get here, and so then so notice that we have left some blank or light lines over here. These two appear to be visible, so we'll actually darken these. There's going to be a back line corresponding to this, which is parallel. So we go here, and that rest of that gets hidden, obscured here, so we don't show our hidden line. So this is that. So seem to be something missing over here. So let's revisit. So we have to go from the top point here. So we go 10 millimeters down. So that's going to take time. And from here, we're going to go 5 millimeters here. Double check with that. Five millimeters. So I'm going to make this one dark. Dark as well. Then you notice that this point is actually connected to the top point. This point is actually connected here. So back is actually going to be parallel, so I can actually this here, make it darker again. So the join or rather the intersection of these 2 points is actually hidden, so we don't actually show it. So this is actually darkened, so let's just make sure we have this dark, and we just double check, and it looks like a good enough representation of the 3D object. So this basically concludes our discussion on SolidWorks assembly. So if you recall, what we did was we kind of like created the SolidWorks assembly, looked at the different ways in which you can constrain, or it's known as mate in SolidWorks. So we looked at it, and then we kind of like took a step back and then did the review of the assignment, where we just labeled few of the points which we were running into trouble. And the other thing we learned is that we need to make sure that in order to conclude that lines are parallel, we need to ensure that the lines are actually parallel in multiple views. So this basically concludes our video, and thank you for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video. Thank you.